Hi and welcome everyone to this tutorial, which will be first launched on the Winter Camp 2020, where I'm going to show you how to set up your own website and also, like shown in this example here, you will be able to get data from a third-party service. Here in this case I took the Poke API, which now lists me a bunch of Pokemons, and this website also lists me the posts that are available on this website. To be quite honest, instead of Pokemons, I wanted to take BMM, but I think this would be a bit too big of a thing to do in this tutorial, as it requires a bit more knowledge, because Pokemons you can get without any authentication, but for BMM you have to log in with your username and password, which makes things a bit more complicated to implement. When getting started, I would say that we take a quick overlook over things that I think are important when talking about a website. The first thing that everyone has in mind is the coding part. Like, we need to program a website, right? And in order to program it, you might have an editor of choice. In my case, will taking the Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to show you how to set it up that it works smoothly. You will most likely have some kind of framework and tools. In this case, we're going to use Wordpress, which might be already familiar to many of you. If not, sit back and relax, because we're going to through all the details. There are a ton of more frameworks and a ton of more tools. If you're not building a normal website, it might be reasonable to take something else than WordPress. But many of the websites, I think even bcc.no and the official websites of Germany, DCG-Deutschland, are built. Let me just show it to you. DCG-Deutschland. This one here, which is the publicly available website of DCG in Germany, those are built in WordPress, and you see that they have individual posts, which each their content and so on. So even bcc.no is a bit of the same. You can even see that they most likely used a very similar template, since they very much look alike. Here you also see that they have blogs which they publish as series, and for those things WordPress is a very good fit. But let's go on with the other things I think are important. A part of coding itself, there is also the hosting, whereby your website should be hosted on a server. You need to be you need some server that has your website ready for everyone who wants to access it. So that means you need a server, but you also need what I call a domain. Like a domain, if you now type in bcc.no, this domain here has been bought by Brünzer Christian Church, for example. And this domain is actually just a way to easily remember the server. Like, you don't want to remember this IP address, which is the address whereby you can access the server. But this name makes it easier for you as a human to remember where to go, and the system then, by using the DNS service, can resolve this name into an IP address. And the IP address is then the address of the server storing your website, where we then come to the server, which usually consists of hardware. In easy words, it is just a normal computer, maybe a bit more specialized. It does not have a monitor, because it doesn't need a monitor if it's just out there waiting for someone to access it remotely. So it has some hardware, it has an operating system, maybe it has Windows, maybe it has Mac, maybe it has Linux, maybe something else. And on that operating system, you usually have a web server, like a service serving you something. You have a storage for files, videos, images, for example, or just your scripts. And you often have a database, like a location to store data that changes frequently. Like, for example, if you now go ahead and create a post, you don't want to upload a file for that. You just want to have a nice, neat interface where you want to interact with, typing down things, saving it, and then saving it somewhere, and that place here would be the database. So that is the part of the hosting. And if all that is set, you can imagine that you have a website which is running. It is okay. Next part, I would like people to think more often about is also scaling. If you have a website, which is just a personal private website, you can think of, yeah, this is not accessed all too often. But if you're developing a website which will, for example, be used at something where all the church is participating on, like we had in the beginning of 2020 with the Hebrews website, this might be accessed, like if you then also implement a questionnaire on that website, which will be used during a live session, then you can imagine that everyone watching this session will want to access the website at the same time. And then you need to be prepared for that your system, your machine, or your hosting service is actually able of managing all those requests coming to that system. Often there are three things talked about. One of them is horizontal scaling. Next is vertical scaling, and then you often hear managed things or even serverless. If you think about it, if you want to scale your computer to be able to do more things, for example, you want to play a more powerful game, you will most likely apply what is called vertical scaling. It is like a building. If you build the next floor, you're doing vertical scaling. There's still one building, but the building is bigger, it has more capacity. So if you do vertical scaling on a server, that would mean that you're buying a bigger server, for example. A horizontal scaling would be to have more buildings. It's a horizontal scaling, it is more than just one, it's getting broader. You might end up with a small city or a small village of servers. They even call it server farms sometimes. And there, on horizontal scaling, you plan on not having your data only stored on one server, but on 2, 3, or maybe more. Some systems go even into millions of servers, which then you reach a scale of Google, kind of. But there is everything in that range. Horizontal scaling also might be a valid choice of saying that I want fault tolerance. If I only have one single server, you know that hardware can fail, right? Your hard disk might crash at one point in time. So you might want to have a backup. And this backup should always be available. So why not have it online all the time? So you could have a system where you always have 2 servers running. And if one of them fails, the other one can be able to serve this service from the time on until you have restored the hardware of the second server. This is very important also when it comes to the next one, and it also goes into here, ensuring reliability, ensuring that your service is always running. Most of the time, these things are things that your hosting provider also will play a big role in. If you're choosing a hosting provider, he will also most likely provide you with some monitoring tools. He will provide you with some places for logs, where you can go and check what went wrong, how your website crashed, and thereby can reproduce it, or even or be able to quicker find the mistake and fix it. If you're programming large things like large plugins or maybe a website fully on your own, I would opt in for automated testing, or at least think of it, because if you do that, you can have a testing system in place where you can hit a button. This button runs all the tests that you have written, and you can be sure that what you did does still work. Another thing that I think is also important is what in management is called the buzz factor. It is a bit of a funny term, I have to agree. It is the number of people who can be hit by a bus without your projects getting into trouble. So if you're the only one knowing how this website works and how it can be programmed, and you're the only one to fix bugs, then you know that your project has a buzz factor of 0. None of the people on your team can go without your project getting into trouble. If you have 10 people on your system and only one of them knows how to deal with the database, you also have a buzz factor of 0. And you should increase that one to at least 1 or 2 on bigger projects where you want to earn money with. Because those systems should not go down. And you should not have trouble if one person suddenly... He doesn't need to be hit by a bus, but he can also decide to leave and join another project, which would also be a valid scenario. Maybe more valid than be hit by a bus. But all that said, let's get started with our own first website. For this project, I've chosen a free and unlimited web hosting service. I don't know how reliable this service is, because we do not pay any money for it. So I would not use it for something like a commercial web shop or something. For that, I would rather go on to a serious hosting provider where you also pay money for the service, because they know that you're getting a good and solid service. But since we're here on the camp and just want to try out something, I'm now going for this one. It's called infinityfree.net. Just type in the web address and you should land at the same page as I am. For the next step, click on the client area on the right top here. By clicking on that, you should come here. Yes. To this login form, where you most likely don't have an account yet, and click on sign up in order to create a new one. Fill in this form, and then I think you will get a confirmation mail. Since I've done all these steps before, I can just log in. If you don't have an account yet, just pause the video here, create your account, and then resume here. Click on sign in. You can also choose to remember you. It has something here to verify that I'm a human. Yes. And then you should land here. Yours might not have an account yet, so I'm also gonna start with a fresh account here. Click on create account. And as next, the system is asking me if I want a subdomain of a domain it owns, like 42web.io, or if I want to have a custom domain. If I have a domain bought at another service, like for example, one of the services would be namecheap.com. This is a service that I've personally used and I'm quite good with. Here you could, for example, call it rc2020.net. Look if it is free. If nobody has bought it yet, Let's check it out. Yeah, somebody, or give me a second. No, it is not bought yet. I can buy it, and it will cost me €8 a year. If you want, you can do that. I'm gonna stick with one of their subdomains. Let's take the 42web.io, and I'm gonna call my website RC2020. Not call it website-rc2020.42web.io. If you want to take this same subdomain, this won't work because I've already taken it. So you have to choose another one. Click on search domain. I'm lucky, mine is available. Now I can create a label for the account. The username is auto-generated. Let's use my password manager to generate another password for this one. Click on create account. And that's it. You now have your own hosting system, or your own hosted website, I would say. Click on view in client area, and you will get to a view where it shows you all the details about your hosting system. Here it will take a few minutes for this thing to get up. In the meanwhile, I'm going to go into the control panel, a place where I can control most of the things. They need the permission to send me email. I allow them to do that. Thanks, the panel will load now. So, here I am at the control panel. As on a plane, on a control panel, you can do everything and control everything from here. We can see that on our system we have a way to access files. We're going to go back on that one. We have something about databases here. We have something about domains, email, metrics. This is about the monitoring, which I told you earlier about. And we have a part here called software. I'm going to go on that and click on this Softacular Apps Installer, they called it. Click on it, and this one will help you to quickly install a system on your hosting. One of them would be WordPress, which is what we are going to take, but there are also other so-called content management systems like Joomla, or Laravel is rather a framework, I would say. OpenCard is a CMS system. SMF is like PHP BB. It is a forum. AbantiCard sounds like a shopping system, right? E-commerce. Concrete is also a blocking system or a content management system. You can also browse through this list here and see what other things there are available. Maybe some of you will be familiar with Moodle, just because it strikes my eyes. I've heard that some schools use it for managing their online schooling nowadays. Maybe there are better systems. Maybe you also will find something here which your school uses. Otherwise, I'm going to go here to blogs, selecting WordPress, clicking on the icon here, and selecting Quick Install. I want to install it right at the base of my website. No subdirectories, right here. And I want to call the title RC2020, and the site description, I'll leave that on my WordPress blog. Admin username, I take Simon. Let me just store my password. No, that is not needed. But this password I will need. Copy it. admin email address, that's okay, language, and so on and so on. And then hit install. This will now also take a few minutes. Yeah, there I'm back. Since it kept failing 2-3 times in a row, I did the following thing. I went back to the control panel, went into subdomains over here, and just created another subdomain which I called bok.is-best.net. You can just go here and select one of yours. You can, for example, take the is great. Maybe one of the is. No, there is no other is best. Yeah. Now, when headed back to the script, how was it called? Scriptaculous or no, Softaculous. I installed it to this domain. I went back here, and wait a second. I went back here to WordPress on the install tab, typed in the data, and selected the BOK is best domain. Typed it all in, and now it works. Here's the final congratulations page, which shows me first a link to the website itself, which now looks like this. And it also shows me a link to the administration panel. The administration panel opens up here, and I'm directly logged in. You see, I didn't even need to type in my password, but I'm gonna do it anyways, just so that my password manager will store it. That also happens sometimes. Just go back, try it again. Then it works for some reason. So I'm gonna save that one into my password manager, and now I'm in here. I'm in the backend of my own WordPress website. So here's how it looks in the front end, and here's how the backend looks, like our cockpit, you could almost say. I now want to enter settings and go into reading, because I don't want the front page to be my latest posts, but I want it to be a static page. And I want to take the sample page here. Click that one, click on Save Changes. And now, when reloading the website itself, it should look a bit different. Yes, I get directly straight to like the URL. If you just type in the address of my website, it now opens the sample page. I can go here onto Pages, All Pages, and see how this sample page looks like. You now also see an information that this one is the front page now. I want to edit it, and they informed me that the editor changed. Yes. Getting started. I want to write BUK RC 2020 up here. Update. Go to my website. Reload. Where do they show the title? Ah, the title is now up here. No, it's not. Wait. Or is it just the name of the website? Maybe I have to write it in here. You see, I'm not that familiar with the new editor here. RC 2020. Let's find a way to make it a heading here. Clicking on this paragraph item. I want to make it a headline, and I wanted to make it the first headline. Very big and very bold. Updating, saving. Now it looks like this. And you can play a bit around, change text. You can also add images here somewhere. Inline images, here it is. And so on, many different things. Just pause and take your time. Browse a bit around here. What I wanted to go on with is how I can add something here that is really custom. Go to browse all, and here there should be something like shortcodes. Yes, shortcodes are something in WordPress where you can add some of your own plugins, and I don't want to write my own plugin to do whatever I want. As shortcode here, I want to call it my shortcode, just my shortcode, just like this. Update it. And if I now go to the website, it should show nothing down here, or the shortcode itself, because I have to add parentheses. Reloading. Yeah, that didn't change much. But in order to make this shortcode do something, we have to register it somewhere, right? So that is why I now will take my Visual Studio Code. Or we can also do this in our cockpit. Scroll up, go to the online file manager. And in here, we now have our BUK is best folder. And if we open it, we see an htdocs folder. Opening that one, you will see all the files that are available on our website. Or the files that make up WordPress, to say it like that. Inside the WP content folder, there is the plugins folder. And in here, we can create a new folder. Let's see how we can do it with this. It's down here. It's hidden under my... Let me move that thing over to the right. Creating a new folder, calling this folder my shortcode. You could call it whatever. Opening it. Creating a new file. I'm going to call it the same. .php in the end. So for the system to know that it is a PHP script. Clicking on OK, it will open the editor. I'm gonna write a greater than sign, question mark, and PHP. This is now this will now indicate that from here on everything is PHP code. And here we have to write a /star, which starts a comment section. This is now something very specific to WordPress plugins. WordPress will now read this comment. And the first line we're going to write plugin space name, colon, and we can here write a name for our plugin. I just call it my RC shortcode. In the next line we can write a plugin your eye, which I'm just gonna leave blank, so we cannot. I think we can remove this line then. Description. This shortcode, my shortcode, just returns the text. Hello world. Version 1.0.0. Author is me. And then we take a star and a slash again to say that the comments will end here. Until now we have not done much. We have just created a plugin which should be available in the backend of WordPress. Let's try that out. Save this one. Then go back to our WordPress backend. This is over here. Click on the WordPress icon to go back into this view, on plugins, and then in installed plugins, you will see a list of plugins that are available. And on one of them, you will see the title that I wrote, the description that I wrote, the version, and the author's name. I can activate this one, which again will not do much because we did not write anything into the plugin except it for a description and the title. So now we can go in there and actually register the shortcode which we used here on our website, which was my shortcode. And WordPress there has an option which they call, let me go back to the file manager. WordPress calls this option add_shortcode. This is a function by WordPress by which I can register a shortcode, say that this shortcode is available, my shortcode, and this shortcode do what is described in the function. I just call it ssc_demo_shortcode. And with this same name, I just copied this name, you now also have to provide a function. Function, space, paste this name, opening, closing parentheses, and opening, closing squared parentheses. And within these squared parentheses, we can now tell what this function should do. And this shortcode function here, it expects a return value. And this return value will replace the shortcode. You will see what I mean by that in a second. If you write here, return, space, and then in quotes, hello world, exclamation mark, and a semicolon. Be aware of that in PHP, many lines will need a semicolon. If you don't provide a semicolon here, you will get an error. Click on save. And if you have it like me, you should now, instead of the shortcode on the website, see hello world. Here we are. So this is our first plugin doing something. As next, I want it to be centered like these others here. For that, I do a right click on this text, go on to inspect to see what makes this one stay in the center. And if I look at it, my text here is just plain text. And this here is wrapped into a p tag. By the way, if you don't know HTML yet, during the Easter Camp 2020, I already did a course on HTML and CSS. If you want to check out that first, I will gonna post a link up here. It should be up there if you see it on YouTube. And there you can learn how to deal with HTML and CSS first, what all that stuff means, what it is, what it can do. Here we see that our text here is wrapped into a p tag, and a p tag, if we take my face away there, has a margin left and right set to auto. If we disable that, if we disable both of them, in fact, we see that the text stays exactly where our text is. So let's enable this back again. So the text is in the center. And I would now wrap our text also in a p tag. That we can do by going back to the form, and here as return value, we do not only return the text itself, but also a p tag. Greater sign p, less sign p. And then at the end, we do a greater sign, slash p, and a less than sign. Save it. And if we now check that out, Hooray! The text is centered. Nice. Now the next step that I wanted to do is I found this neat API over here where I know that, that this is a service providing me with a list of Pokemons. If we now hit this link here, for example, it will give us a list of Pokemons in the results. This is a list of 100 Pokemons. So by taking this URL, just this in the beginning, I'm doing this now in a new tab, going back, picking up the rest that I couldn't copy, paste it to the end here, and I now want to set the offset to 0 because I want to get the first Pokemons, and take the limit down to 20. Enter, and now we see something. It might look cryptical to you, but this is actually called JSON. JSON is a JavaScript object representation where you have an object having properties. Those properties have values separated by a semicolon, and by a comma you can see the next property with its value. Here the next property and its value, here the next property and a very long value. Like this, property results here contains an array, and if we go back to our Pokemon API, we see it actually a bit better here. This response here has a count, next, previous, and results, which is an array of, if we change it here like we had it in our request, we will see that we get these 20 items. And those 20 items I now want to have as a list on my website. So we can do the following. We take this URL. I'm just going to take it from the tab where I already concatenated it. Going back to our file, hitting enter and writing file underscore get underscore contents. This here is a function of PHP. File get contents. If you want to read in the manual what all you can do here, take the time and read through it. But what I'm gonna do is, this allows me to access a resource and then as a result get the full content of it. So I can now take the URL of this item here and I will get this text back. Let's try this out. We go here, paste the URL. Here again we need a semicolon at the end of the line. And this I want to return instead of this one. So this one can get 2 slashes in the front, which will also make it as a comment. Hit save, and now you should see, instead of our hello world, you should see a ton of text. And this is the result that we would get from the server. As I told you, this is a so-called JSON result. And PHP also has a function for JSON where it can deals with this JSON string representation and move it into or transform it into a PHP value. So this, in this example, I'm also going to take the second value, set it to true, associative. When true, JSON objects will return as associative array. This is just for my convenience to make it a bit easier to write. I'm personally more familiar with associative arrays than with objects in PHP. I can now, instead of returning it straight away, I can write this into a variable. A variable always starts with a dollar. So I call it dollar JSON string equals this. So I want to save all that which I get back from this command. I want to save it in this variable. As I now know how to deal with JSON, I can use this function to parse our JSON string into an associative array by using this second property. So let's go back, writing down JSON underscore decode, opening parentheses, dollar JSON string. I can, if this auto-completion window pops up, I can just hit tab and it will use that one. Comma, true. Remember that we wanted it as associative array. This array I want to save into a variable. Let's call it result equals. Saving this, loading the website. Should show us that all our content is gone because we do not return anything from our shortcode, but the rest of the website should still load, meaning that our script is not breaking. If our script would be breaking, for example, I would not write the semicolon here. Let's save this one, reload it. So then you will see an error like this, or you will just see half a website, which was the case of one of my web servers. So then you know that you missed some small detail. Maybe it might be very small. Then just jump over into the chat on Discord, where quite some of us developers will be. Saving it, reloading, and it should show. Yes, shows completely. Now, since we have our data in this variable, we can now, using the array annotation, go to the results, which we have as part of our JSON object or associative array, and then loop through those items here and pick the name and return those from the function. If we now, let's take this on an example. I will just do it with the first one. Writing return space dollar result, opening square parentheses, and in quotes writing result. That was the name, right? Results with an S. Results 0, and then again the square parentheses, and in quotes name. Hit the semicolon, save that one, and reload it on the website, which should now show me the name of the first Pokemon. Here we go. If you didn't get that one, check if you did not do a mistake somewhere here. And since we do not only want the first of those Pokemons, we now create a new variable calling result, and this will be the resulting text. And I set it equal to, in quotes, greater sign, h2 less sign, Pokemons slash h2 greater sign semicolon. Taking this one here away and returning dollar result, which will now show us the headline Pokemons. Here we have it. Here is our headline. And now down here, I want to list all those Pokemons. Going back to the file manager, After this $results, I can write a for each opening parentheses. Now I write with a dollar, I write the name of the list I want to loop through, which is $result, opening squared parentheses, and in quotes, results as $Pokemon, space, opening curly parentheses. And in here, I can now say what I want to do for each of those Pokemons. And for each of those Pokemons, I want to add the name to the result. I want to add the name to this text. So let's go for it. $result. Oh, I just discovered that these two are the same variables. So we have to rename this one not to create a confusion. Let's call this just res. So res is our output, changing it here and the return value as well. And here I can, since I do not want to overwrite the text of the content of this variable, I can now attach it to it. And in PHP, you concatenate two strings by a dot. In other languages, you might do it using a plus, in JavaScript, for example, but here you do it by a dot. And instead of writing equal $res dot and then your text, you can also shorten this one, but just writing dot equal and removing this one. I hope this was not too fast. So by writing the variable name dot equal, I'm gonna extend the content of this variable by this string. And this string should be an opening p tag, then the name of the Pokemon, Pokemon name, dot, and then a closing p tag again. Be aware that you have to put the text into quotes while leaving the variable outside the quotes connected with dots. Don't forget the semicolon in the end. And if your text looks like this, it should now... Yes! See, I have a line for each of the Pokemon. That is nice. Now you can also play a bit around, doing a bit of other stuff. Like the Pokemon API also has individual Pokemons, where you could, for example, list their abilities or various other things. But let's try to get something out of the database. Like in our system, we also have the database. Like this page itself here, which we were at, which now is saved as my home page, is also inside the database. Let's check that out for a second. Go into the control panel, and in the control panel, you can open up in the databases tab, you can open the section PHP My Admin. Opening that one, you're not logged in. I think I didn't, yeah, that was a bit too long. Let me go back into the infinity.net. Click on control panel again. Ah, now it loads. Nice. Clicking on PHP My Admin again. Now it should work. Since I've done this test already a couple of times, I have some databases here. I guess it is the last of those. Connect now will take you to the panel of this database. Let's see it. Databases, there's nothing in here. Maybe I took the wrong one. Let's check this one out. This also has no databases. Well, then it must be the first one. Yes, here we go. These are the tables containing the information needed for the website. If I now, for example, look into the _users table, I will see a table of data of all the users that currently have access to the website. Or, rather said, the backend. Those users have access to the backend. If I look into the posts, I will be able to see many different pages, and some of them show the headline BOK RC 2020, which much looks like our site that we have here. And in fact, it is the same one. The one having the post status publish is the one which is currently here, our first homepage. We can in fact now also go into here, click on the edit button, and also change something in here. For example, rewrite this paragraph here to like this, scrolling all the way down, clicking on go. This now updated the content of this item, and when I go back to the website, reload, I will see that my first paragraph should be the text that I entered. Yes, here we go. Since it is very tedious to do this via the phpMyAdmin panel, the people from WordPress got down and wrote this script. This script that now is the administration backend. Yes, and now I wanted to show you as last step how to get data out of the database and show it on your website. By that you can then afterwards create your own tables in the database, or look up how that works, look up how to insert data into that table that you created, and then show those data on the website. And that is possible by going back to our, let's take our demo shortcode for that one again. Enter a few new lines, $res dot equal, we want to give it the new headline, h2, call it posts, colon, slash h2, so that the rest does not appear as a website, as a headline, the rest that follows. Create a new variable, posts, and save into it the result of, now it gets a bit longer, $WPDB dash less than sign. This almost looks like an arrow pointing into something. It actually points to a function that is part of the object WPDB. And this and the function we want to call of this object is called get underscore results, opening parentheses. And now in quotes, you have to write what we call an SQL statement. Now, to the database we currently have, which is MySQL, you talk in the language SQL. So don't be surprised if that what follows now is not all too familiar with what we have had before. But if you want to see how to construct such a query, just look up some tutorials about SQL. I think you will find plenty of them. We will write it as select space, and here in this select we name some columns of a table which we want to get as a result. So if we now, for example, go back to our database, to our phpMyAdmin, you see that this table WPSX underscore posts has a column called ID, and it has a column called post title, post status, and many others as well. So we can now go back to our file, and we want, as a result, we want the post title. So write post underscore title. Make sure that you didn't misspell it. From space. And since this name always is changing because WordPress is putting a prefix on here, now let's forget about that. Yeah, we do. We do. This name here is stored within WordPress. So we can make it easier by just getting this text from WordPress. $WPDB, the arrow again, posts. This one here, this will work. Yeah. Space. Let's leave it like that. Let's leave it like that. Put a semicolon at the end of the line. Hit enter. Take our for each again. For each of $posts, we want to have it available as $post, opening curly parentheses. We want to add something to the res variable. Dot equal, opening p tag, dot $post, and now of this variable here will contain a list of objects which have the properties which we defined as select here. So we can just take post dash greater sign post underscore title. Close the p tag. Don't forget the semicolon at the end of the line. And save this one. This one should now show us a list of all of these items and list the post titles. Let's see that in action. Reload here. Oh, I messed something up. You can see that by the fact that nothing of my site is showing up. Let's go back and see. This object over here is something that comes from a global space. So we have to define it at the beginning of the function so that the system will take it from outside the function and make it available here. Global VPDB semicolon. Make a new line to make it a bit more looking a bit more beautiful. Save it. Reload. Here we go. Here we have our list of Pokemons, and below that you should see this list of posts. Since these are too many, I want to limit it, and I want to do that by a condition. If we now look here, all those are the ones in the database, but only 2 of them have the post status publish, and only those 2 I'm interested on. I'm not interested on the draft, the auto draft, or the inherited things. Only on the 2 published ones. So I'm going back to my file, and I'm changing my query, adding where space post underscore status equal to, and now take the single quotes like these here and write publish between them. The quotes here are again important to mark this as a string. Like publish is not a keyword in SQL, neither is it a column of this table, but it should be treated like text. And if we would use the double quotes, we would say that this is the end of this text. So this is why we either could escape these double quotes to show the system this is still part of this SQL query, or we can use single quotes. To make it easier, I will use single quotes. Save it. And if we now go back to our website and reload, we only see those items where the condition is met, the condition of post status being published. Yes, and this was a quick introduction about WordPress and creating our own shortcode. I hope you liked it. It was not too fast. And if you have questions, we are available in the Discord channel throughout the camp. So feel free to reach out to us there. Thanks and have a good time further on.